Today, my guest is former WWE Tag Team Champion. He's one half of the legendary tag team, the Headbangers. You may know him as Mosh, Mr. Chaz Warrington. Chaz, how are you, sir?
I'm great. How are you?
I
Excited to
can't,
be here.
I can't complain. I live here in Indiana, so the weather's been hit and miss, but today seems like it's going to be a good day.
Yeah, we were just in Indianapolis, and it was freezing a few weeks ago. There was still some snow on the ground. So I was like, "Oh, this is ugly."
It'll rain one day, 90 the next, snow, tornado. It's hard to stay healthy here sometimes.
Yeah, this time of year is crazy. I grew up in South Jersey, and it's the same way up there this time of year. So I'm like, I'm down in South Florida now, and it's we get that afternoon thunderstorm that rolls through for 10, 15 minutes, then it goes away, and then the sun's out, and everybody's happy again. So it's great.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, what made you want to get into professional wrestling? Where did you fall in love with this sport?
Well, I mean, I fell in love with it when I was a kid. I know not everyone. I think most people liked it or at least watched it growing up. I loved it. I used to go all the time and watch it. And I remember going over when the first couple of WrestleManias, they did closed circuit TV at the Garden State Racetrack by my house. I'd go over with my buddies and we would watch it there. Go over to the Spectrum in Philly every month and watch it. So it's just one of those things I used to joke around with my friends with and say, hey, one day you're going to see me in that ring. Never realizing, at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, you're saying that, never realizing that it actually would come true. And I just kind of fell into it. And I think it was one of those things I was just kind of meant to be because every step and every stage of my career, like just at least at first, kept going and going and going and going. Like it was almost like it was meant to be.
Now, how hard was it to get into professional wrestling back then?
Um, I mean, it's never easy to get into. I mean, it's easy to get into. Let me start. It's easy to get into it. All you got to do is find a school where someone will take your money. I was fortunate enough to where the school I went to was the Monster Factory, but they didn't take everybody. You had to go through a tryout. And when I did my tryout, there were six other guys there. And Larry Sharp said to me, we don't take everybody. And I literally thought, yeah, it's bullshit. It's $3 grand for the school. You got 18 grand sitting here. You're taking the 18 grand. But he didn't. He only accepted two of us. And the other four, he basically said, sorry, I don't think you have what it takes, to be a superstar in this business. And because of that, he goes, I'm not accepting it. Which shocked me, but it makes sense because he didn't want people walking around saying, hey, I went to the Monster Factory when they weren't that good because that would make the school look bad.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so I was fortunate. That was like 15 minutes from where I was living, where I grew up in South Jersey. So I went and started trying out, and that's kind of how I did it. So, like I said, it's kind of easy to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder. It's like any other professional sport. Only 1 or 2% actually make it to they make it to the show.
Was it harder than what you thought it would be first getting into professional wrestling, or was it like an easy transition for you?
I mean, I guess when I started, the transition was, I don't know if I'd say easy, but maybe, I don't know. See, that's a tough question because I went into it with zero expectations. I went into it with the idea of, oh, this will be cool to try, not realizing it would, end up where it ended up for me. But I wrestled amateur. So a lot of the rolls and the bumps and the moves and things like that, the chain wrestling, that part was easy for me because I already knew it because I was doing it. But as far as the other stuff, taking bumps and flipping over and just falling backwards, that's not easy at all because it's unnatural for your body. If you think about it, if you're standing there and you start falling backwards, your natural reaction is going to be to put your hands down. Well, in wrestling, you don't want to put your hands down because someone's going to land on it, or you could land on it funny and break something or pop something out. So that part of it was not easy at all because you have to retrain your mind to not put your arms down. Like when I jump into a pool,
Mm-hmm.
I used to be able to do a flip and flip all the way over and land on my feet. When I do a flip into a pool now, I land flat on my back. I take a back bump. Like my body just won't go all the way over anymore. But it's just one of those things.
How long did you train initially before you started working matches?
So I was actually in the ring 3 weeks when WWF rolled into town to do the Saturday morning shows they used to do, the Wrestling Challenge and the Superstars on Saturday mornings that would show. and it was just a superstar against a guy. They called it job matches back then. I know they changed it into enhancements and extras or whatever, but we were job guys. Our job was to make the superstar look good. So they basically were rolling in when they would run up and down the East Coast when they did that back in the early to mid '90s. Vince would use Larry's guys because he knew Larry. So there was one time, again, 3 weeks out of school when Glenn trained me. He looked at me and he goes, "Hey, WWF's coming into town. We're going to do TV." And I was like, "What?" So literally, it was 3 weeks of training. I basically knew how to bump, hit the ropes, and that was it. And there I was in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, on TV, working against Adam Bomb. So it was 3 weeks. And then the next night was I was in the ring working Papa Shango. So it was I had actually had 4 TV squash matches before I actually had my first, I guess what I would call my first real match.
How intimidating was that?
It was crazy. It was it was surreal. It was crazy because I was still a fan. I was still watching, and I'm in a locker room with Bret Hart, Owen Hart. There's the Steiners running around. Macho Man comes down, and all these guys that I was still currently watching, and I grew up watching the first few years before that. It was just nuts. Standing in that ring with everyone knowing I was going to lose and booing me and telling me I sucked. They're like, "Oh, you suck. You're going to lose." I'm like, "Yeah, I know I suck. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I've been here 3 days." It was amazing though. And when I got out of the ring the first time, I said, "This is what I want to do. Somehow, some way, this is what I want to do for a living." And like I said, everything just kind of progressed from there, and it just kind of worked out like it was supposed to be.
So how long after that did you? I mean, did that put you on WWE's radar? Did you work more matches in the East Coast scene just when they came into town, or how did that all come to be?
No, I don't think it really put me. I guess it kind of did, but we did like I said, Glenn trained me, um, and then we became, then we started tagging together. So I started in June of '93. That was July of '93. I had like my first real match September, October, and November of '93. I did like a little program with another kid down at the school, and then Glenn started tagging. But meanwhile, over all these months, we kept WWF. They were running the East Coast, the Northeast, so we were always there. And then we went back a couple of times when, we went to Memphis and we went to Smoky Mountain. In between there, if they were in the area we were home and they were doing TV, we would go and do job matches. So the guys started getting to know us from the territories and then from us being up there. And ultimately, I guess it did work out because when Smoky Mountain shut down, Cornette was working full time with WWE, and he went into Vince's office and said, "Hey, I have this tag team I'd like for you to look at, and bring him in. We'll have him do a dark match." And Vince was like, "Well, tell me about him." And he goes, "Well," "you may know who they are, you may not." He goes, "I don't know. They've been up here as the Spiders. They've been here by themselves, Chaz and Glenn." He goes, "They have this gimmick now they're doing that I helped them create in Smoky Mountain." And he turns around, he's like, "Oh," he goes, "I know exactly who you're talking about." He goes, "I've seen them a bunch of times." He goes, "There's no reason for a tryout. Just put them under." At that time, they had this part-time contract.
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Put them under the part-time contract." He goes, "And then we'll take it from there." So I guess in reality, yes, it did work out being up there. But it was funny because there were so many. Glenn tells the story the best because he was doing this. He was wrestling before me, and people used to tell him all the time, "You don't want to keep doing job matches. You don't want to keep doing job matches because you're going to get that. You're going to get that. You're going to be known for that." It's kind of like a stereotyped into like someone does movies, like they're only action movies. Actually, they can't do like different movies and things like that. They were afraid we get that stigma of being job guys, but we didn't, and it worked out.
So the part-time contract, was that just something where you could work outside of WWE at the time, and then they would bring you in when they wanted to use you?
Yeah. So what it was actually great because what they wanted to do, Vince was tired of having the squash matches. He wanted to start having more competitive matches on TV. So what he did was he created this part-time contract where he'd bring guys in, put them under this deal. It's basically a TV deal. You would get paid to be at TV, and they would build you up to a certain level, and then they would put you against like one of the top guys to make it seem more competitive. Because this way here, the fans would see, they would see, you stay with us, they'd see the Headbangers get like here, like, okay, oh, look, they've won 5 or 6 matches. Okay, now they're against the Godwins. Oh, can they beat the Godwins or not? Kind of make it look like competitive matches. So it was basically a TV contract. You would go to TV, you got paid. But yes, you were still allowed to do indie bookings, which was great because now my indie bookings, the price for the indies went up because now I'm on WWF TV. So it worked out. And under that contract, that deal they had, that we were the only ones that ended up signing a full time deal out of it.
How long did you have that part time before it transitioned into a full time?
We started in November of '96. I'd say we got it in November of '96. I'd probably say over that summer of '97 is when they finally offered us a full time deal. But the cool part is when we were part time, they put us on house shows. We were doing house shows like we were full time. They were treating us like full time guys before we actually got it. And we kept. I've written a book,
Mm-hmm.
which is not out yet. But I put this in the book about how we were badgering them of, hey, listen, we have action figures. We're on video games. We won at WrestleMania. And like I had this conversation with Shane at the after Shane McMahon, the after party of WrestleMania 13, of us going, so we're still part time. Shouldn't we be full time guys now? Like, when's that going to come about? And Shane was like, can you guys just relax and enjoy the weekend? Like, you got a match tomorrow night on Raw against Owen and Davey Boy for the belts. Like, just have a good time. Just relax. So I think that ended up happening in the summer of '97.
How good of a feeling was that to finally be a full time WWE superstar?
It's the ultimate because that was, that's obviously when you get into wrestling, that's
Mm-hmm.
the end goal is to get there. Not only get there, but get a deal. And then, like I said, we had action figures coming out. We were on the video game and, WrestleMania, we win it. Our first WrestleMania, we win. But then when you get that, it kind of solidifies a little bit more because you always kind of feel like under that part-time deal, the part-time deal wasn't like a set, like 3 year term or a 1 year term. It was kind of I guess, month to month thing. You kind of just went. Um, but once you got it, you feel a little more solidified. You actually feel like you fit in a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
because all the other guys know about the contract. And, so you kind of get, this could just be in my head. I don't know, but you get looked at a little bit differently when you're not under a full time deal. But once you're under a full time deal, you're, I guess, a little more accepted. And
Mm-hmm.
again, that could just be in my head. That's kind of how I felt. But yeah, it's obviously that was the best.
That's crazy to think that you guys had the figures, you were in video games, you wrestled at WrestleMania, and it still wasn't a full time deal at that time. I mean, that shows that they had a lot of faith in what you guys were doing.
Yeah, no, they definitely did. And another great story I have is at one point I kind of so when we first started the headbanger thing, I was kind of letting my hair grow longer. And then I was in between like Smoky Mountain shutting down and trying to figure out what I was doing. I was working at a car wash over summer and it was hot. So Glenn was balding anyway, so he already shaved his head off, shaved the little piece of hair he had. We had shaved it off. So I went over to his house because I would shave the sides of my head, but the top I kept long. And he went over there to shave it, and it was just so hot. I just took his hand and pushed it and just shaved the rest of it off. But my hair grows so fast
Mm-hmm.
that I was getting tired of shaving it. And I'm like, oh, we made it. So I started letting it grow out. And it was Barry Windham who came up to me. I'll never forget it. Hershey, Pennsylvania. Barry Windham came up to me because a lot of the guys were coming up going, hey, what's going on with your hair? And I was like, oh, I'm letting it grow out. They're like, oh, okay. Barry Windham pulls me aside. He looks at me and goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. Why? I'm like, I just thought I'd let my hair grow out. He goes, don't you have merchandise? They have video games. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you guys are part-time still, right? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, shave your head. He goes, the company's invested in you. They're investing money in you. He goes, if they now have to reinvest because you're deciding to change your look when you just got here, he goes, that's the dumbest thing you could do. He goes, because they could easily say, you know what, this is costing us more money now. Leave them home or just let you go. He goes, shave your head. And I went, never thought about the business or money side of it. So yeah. So I literally went to the store and bought a clippers and went into the locker room and just shaved it right there and then went out to TV. He saw me an hour later. He was like, oh, okay. I was like, yeah, listen, you're Barry Windham. Like, if I'm going to take advice from someone, definitely someone pulling me aside in the locker room back then, that's
Mm-hmm.
big.
So once you signed that full time deal, did they use you guys more? Did they have more plans? Were you pitching stuff to them at the time?
We weren't really pitching stuff because I didn't know we could.
Hmm.
There's so much that hindsight's 2020, and it's a great thing. But if I would have known now what I knew back then, my career probably would have been totally different. Not that I'm complaining about my career, just saying it would have been things I would have known I would have done differently. Um, no, we actually got used. We got kind of used the same, actually. I don't know if we ever really got pushed. I mean, I know we had a couple of title runs. We had the NWA run. We had the WWF or WWE tag title run. We had a lot of different little like feuds here and there, but we were more used, I feel, as though, and I guess at this point saying enhancement guys really, we really weren't enhancement guys, but we were always used to get another storyline across.
Hmm.
There was a lot of that. Like when the New Age Outlaws came out, we worked against them and we helped get them over to a certain extent, and then they would put us with someone else to get them over to a certain extent. And it didn't matter who they put us with, whether it was a heel or babyface, because we always got cheered. And if we needed to get heat on someone, we could get heat, but then they could turn around the next night and put us on TV and we get cheered again. So it was just the character the way it was. So I don't think we were used differently,
Hmm.
used more or less. We were used differently, I think, than anyone else because of the way our characters were over with the crowd, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. How did it feel to know that you guys were going to be WWE Tag Team Champions?
Um, that's another great story. So we found that out the day of. We had no idea because we were actually fill-ins because Steve got hurt. Steve and Dude Stone Cold and Dude Love were tag champs, but Steve got hurt when he broke his neck, wrestling Owen at SummerSlam. So we were last minute. We were told like 4 or 5 days before, "Hey, you guys are taking their spot," and we're like, "Okay, cool. We're on another pay." To us, it was like, "We're on another pay per view. This is amazing." Um, it was actually Cornette who came up to us the day of the pay per view. It was in Louisville Gardens. He goes, "Hey boys, I got to talk to you." And we were a little nervous because the last couple of times Cornette had to talk to us, we were Rivers and we used to joke around and but anyway, he pulls us aside and takes us all the way down into the bowels of the Louisville Garden into the parking garage and way in the back in like a dark corner. And I'm like, was it that bad what we did that you're pulling us all the way down here? He's like, no, no, no. He goes, I just need to talk to you about something and I don't want anyone else around. We're like, okay. So he goes, you boys you're winning the tag belts tonight. It's like, cool. Standing there like this. And he's like, no, no, no. He goes, I brought you down here because I know how you are. Let's jump around now and get it all out of your system so you don't do it in the locker room for everybody. So all three of us started jumping up and down in the locker room, like hooting and hollering. And then we went upstairs and I was floating the rest of the day. I wasn't even walking. I was just like floating the rest of the day and just had this big smile on my face. And then when we actually sat in the meeting to go over the match, when they got down to just Davey and Owen and us and the Godwins and LOD were eliminated, I had to sit like this because like I was smiling the whole time. And then it was great. So we went through the match and everything. And then afterwards, I stood up and Phineas looks at me and he's like, Chaz. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you can smile. He goes, it's pretty cool you guys are winning the belts. He goes, I'm happy for you. And like we all hugged it out in the locker room. So everyone, our person, like for me, my emotions are written on my forehead, whether it's
Hmm.
good or bad. So I was excited about everything. Like when I found out we're getting figures on video games, like I was telling everybody, even the boys, the guys that had been there forever, they were on like their 10th video game or their 10th whatever. Like to me, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So everyone knew how we were. So it was great that they like embraced it to have the excitement that I was feeling at the same time.
Hmm. How was the process for getting in a video game and getting an action figure back then? Because technology wasn't what it is today.
Yeah. So how we found out was we used to get an envelope on Mondays that gave you like the next, 30 days of bookings or whatever it was. And went through it. And pulled the schedule out and said we had to be at this studio in New York the next because we were in New York for at the Manhattan Center for Monday Night Raw. So we had to be at some studio the next day for head scans. And I asked them like head scans for what? And they're like, oh, your action figure. And I'm like, what action figure? And they're like, you're getting action figures. We were like, oh, we're getting action figures. They're like, yeah. And I'm like, nobody told me. Like nobody told us anything until it was time to do it, which was which was crazy because a lot of and I again you find this out later on. A lot of the guys like with storylines that they're going through with the belts and titles and different things they're doing, like they would find out ahead of time, or they would ask, and we just showed up and go, "What do you need us to do? Like we're
Hmm.
here. Whatever you need us to do, that's what we're going to do." So I literally found everything out the day of, the day before, or as everything was happening because we didn't know to ask. And actually we didn't care to ask back then because we were the philosophy in my mind was I have a job as long as I do what I'm supposed to do and I'll get in trouble. I have a job for life.
Hmm.
That's how I looked at it.
Is there any particular moments that stand out more than others while you're the Headbangers?
Um, there's a few 'cause in my book I actually listed kind of the top 10 moments
Hmm.
that I have, and they range from my very first match with Adam Bomb. Um, so that was my first match, but my second match with Papa Shango actually aired on TV first. So that was my first time on TV wrestling. And then obviously you have WrestleMania when, we won at WrestleMania, Ground Zero, won the belts. But probably my favorite of all time was 2016 when we went back.
Hmm.
Hadn't been on TV in 15 years. They called us to come back. And the coolest part for that was my son, so he's 21 now. So back then, oh, geez, that was 10 years ago almost already. So, he was 11, 10 or 11. He had seen me do a bunch of indie shows to the point where some of the indie shows I've looked over and he was sound asleep on a table as I was in the middle of the ring. But all I wanted was for one time for him to see me in a WWF ring,
Hmm.
WWE ring. I didn't care if it was on TV. I didn't care if it was a house show. Every time they came to South Florida, like I would reach out to the office and go, any way I can get on the show. I'll sign any kind of waiver you want. And I was always told no. So when this happened, I was so excited not only to go back, but I was more excited to have him actually see me in that WWE ring. And then to make it better, it was live on SmackDown.
Hmm.
So he was able to stay home. He was able to watch. My wife set up a camera she set up her phone behind him so I could see his face and his expression, but with the TV in it. So I actually can watch him watch me coming out. So, and the coolest part was I always do the monkey face. The monkey face was done for my niece. I did that with her since she was a baby, and when I got on TV, that when she watched, that was her way of knowing. I was reaching out to her. So I said to my son, I said, "What's something I can do for you?" I said, I do the monkey face. He's like, "I don't know." He's like, "Let's figure it out." So we figured it out. He said to me, he goes, "Dad, I want you to dab." That's when the dab was good with Cam Newton. I'm like, "I'm not dabbing. I hate the dab. I think it's the dumbest thing I've ever seen." He goes, "That's why I want you to dab right there." He goes, "Because you don't like it." So I said, fine. I got in the ring. I got up to the corner and I hit the dab. And the video of him when I hit it, and you could see like he gets filled up with emotion and he starts laughing, but at the same time he's like wiping his eyes. To this day, he won't tell me he teared up, but that right there is probably one of the greatest moments. And we were thousands of miles apart. He was
Hmm.
in South Florida, I was in Dallas. But when I got back to the hotel room, my ex sent me the video, and I sat there and I was able to watch, the whole match with him, and watching. That was probably one of the greatest moments. Winning the belt, having action figures, all that stuff's
Hmm.
really cool. But bonding with him over something like that, and again, like I said, being thousands of miles apart, it's probably the biggest thing ever.
And the reaction was great when you
Yeah.
guys came out. So that's got to be
Yes.
cool for everybody, for him to see everybody cheering for his dad.
Yeah, it was awesome because obviously he wasn't here. I had him when I was done. Like I was single with no responsibility. So when I was on the road, it didn't matter. So he doesn't realize the extent to where, that I got.
Hmm.
And sounds like being kind of bragging about it, but I'm not. But he doesn't understand it. And the house I live in now, I'm now divorced, so I bought a 3-story townhouse, and the room I'm in right now, like you see all my figures and stuff behind me. I have my belts over here. Um, my house in New Jersey had a huge basement, so all this stuff, pictures and from magazine stuff, I had hanging on all the walls. That was kind of like my man cave. So this is kind of my man cave, smaller version now. But the stuff I had on the walls, I wasn't able here. I'm not able to put up. Like I can show it up here, like articles, stuff like that. I have up, but I don't have enough room for all of it. So I got a giant, I guess, like scrapbook, and I put them all in there, and it sits. It's like a giant coffee table book that sits on the table right in front, pointing because it's sitting right there in front of me. But he came home from college and he was flipping through it, like looking at the magazine articles and the newspaper clippings we did. Because when we would go, I don't know, Des Moines, Iowa, we did an interview. We told the interview guy we want to play golf. So he booked us to go play golf, and he did the whole interview while we were golfing, which is hysterical because we suck at golf. And Glenn's doing sand angels and the sand pits and the sand traps, but he was looking through it, and he was like, "Dad," he goes, "I never realized all of this stuff because I've never seen this before." I said, "Because I've never had a place to display it here in Florida, so it was always in the garage, all wrapped up and secure." But he like literally sat there for an hour, like reading the articles, going through it, because he just had no idea to the extent of what we did. And it's funny, a lot of that stuff I look back and I think to myself, wow, we really did a lot. I don't think we did that much, but we really did a lot.
How was it competing as a singles? And
Um, depending on which character they had me competing as is a different scenario. When I was Mosh, it was easy because I was Mosh. Mosh, part of me is Mosh. Like being Mosh, being the Headbangers, it's not really a gimmick. That's kind of, we evolved it into a certain thing. And it's about having fun and having a good time and, being your own person and who cares. And as long as you're not hurting anybody, just go ahead and do whatever you want. So that was easy because I knew who that was. The hard part is when they said they did the beaver cleavage thing, which that would have been easy too because it was a character, it was a gimmick. And, all I had to do was act like I was my head was buried in boobs every day. Like it was very easy to do and act like a big goofball. But then when they said to me, all right, now you're going to be this guy, Chaz, kid from New Jersey, who's just happy to be here. And I went, who's Chaz? Like I had this girlfriend who, on TV, this girlfriend who we really didn't get along. And, it's not that we didn't get along, our personalities clashed. So I was uncomfortable. I couldn't get comfortable being around her. So I couldn't figure it out. And then I felt like I was starting to get into a groove of trying to figure out like, my own moves I had to do because everything I did before then was always tag teams. So I was always trying to figure out, okay, let's do tag team moves. And, I would do one little singles move, but then it was a tag move. Then it was a tag move. So now I had to figure out my own things. And I was starting to figure it out. And then they brought Glenn back. And okay, good. Now you're going to go be a headbanger again. And then it got even harder when they split us up and they put me with D'Lo because in my mind, I'm like, okay, like I know they were calling me Chaz, but in my mind, like I'm still going to be Mosh. Like I had the earrings in, like the personality was going to be the same. And when we were getting ready to go through the curtain for the first time, Bruce Pritchard looks at me and he goes, "You got to take all your earrings out." And I was like, "Why?" He goes, "We want nothing headbanger out there, nothing Mosh." He goes, "You go out there and you be Chaz." I turned around, I looked at him, I looked at D'Lo, and I go, "Who the fuck is Chaz?" Like I didn't know who Chaz. Chaz was some kid that was happy from New Jersey. But so that was tough. Even tagging with D'Lo, I had to figure out who I was and kind of feeding off of his energy and what he did. But I never really figured out who Chaz was, but I knew who Mosh was, and that doing singles as Mosh was easy. And then when they split Glenn and I up and they put me with D'Lo, it was great. But I even asked him like, "Can't I just do?" Because I was doing a lot of singles matches as Mosh at that point. I was like, "Can't I just still be Mosh?" Like, if you think about it, out of a lot of the top guys, you have Edge, you have Brett, you have Shawn. They were all in tag teams. One person kind of takes off and the other person doesn't. Like at that point, I was like, I could be that person that could kind of take off. And they're like, no, we want you to tag with D'Lo. And I went, okay. So
what was their drive behind you tagging with D'Lo?
I don't know. D'Lo and I got along really well. I mean, we've known each other for 30 years. Um, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And then then they put us with Tiger Ali Singh and put turbans on our heads, and that was probably the worst gimmick ever. And then Tiger gets hurt, and we're the only team to ever be taken off the road because their manager got hurt. And then, and then from there, they were taken off the road and never came back. Because that's when they sent me to Puerto Rico, and then my contract expired.
So how has life been after WWE?
Oh, it's been amazing. It was a struggle at first. I had to figure something out. I figured it out. It's everything else I've done in my life, but so I work for a copier company. We basically sell, lease, and service copiers and printers, anything to do with a piece of paper in an office. It's been amazing, and it's gotten me into a lot of philanthropic work. I work with a lot of nonprofits and kids in the area, which I absolutely positively love. And now with the Legends contract that we have with WWE, it's kind of opened the door to other things, like these tremendous new figures we have.
They're beautiful.
They are great. Um, so it's opened the doors. It's kind of that contract's kind of opened the door for me to kind of get back into business, but not be full time in the business, which I love. I go up to the WWE Performance Center and I do guest coaching up there, which is amazing working with the NXT kids because they want to learn. They're like sponges and they're so freaking athletic. It's ridiculous. But yeah, it's great. So life is great. Like I said, I finished the book. Book is with the publisher, so I'm just waiting anytime now for him to finish it and to get a book deal to get that published and get that going. And then I have some other projects I'm working on. So I'm getting into more public speaking stuff and telling my story and new website, chazmach.com. So it's been great. I am very, very fortunate and can't get any better. I mean, I guess it could, but we'll have to wait for that.
If they were to offer you to be a full time trainer, is that something you would transition in doing?
Possibly. There would have to be some. I mean, it's in Orlando, so it's 2.5 hours from where I live. I have no idea. I kind of have an idea what's involved, but
Mm-hmm.
the financial side, like I have no idea what that is. So it would definitely be something I would 100% be interested in and definitely dive into to see how I could make it work because I love it. Like the producing, the matches, and
Mm-hmm.
being involved, and I love helping. And then being involved in like the kids, I call them kids because they're all so young. They're my son's age, but to see them get in the ring and try to work a match out, and then you just help with like little details of it that puts it over the top, and then watch that light bulb go on their head, and then watch them go out in the ring and actually pull it off and come back so excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's the best. I actually was talking to D'Lo last week or a couple weeks ago about that, and he summed it up. He's like, he goes, it's like taking the training wheels off your kid's bike and pushing them and just watch them right off into the sunset. And I'm like, that's exactly the feeling. That's exactly what it's like, coaching and watching them go and produce a match and be able to pull it off. Because, I can coach them and I can help produce them and I can help them and guide them and suggest things to do, but they're the ones that have to pull it off. And when they pull it off, it's amazing. And if they don't pull it off, well, then, you go back and you work on it.
Mm-hmm. If you had any advice to give to anybody getting into professional wrestling, what would it be?
Have a backup plan. 100% have a backup plan. Just again, it's 1 or 2% that make it to even the level I made it, and I didn't. I made it, but to me, I still didn't like make it. But which I know sounds kind of dumb, but you got to have that backup plan, and then when you do make it, you do start making money. Have another backup plan for when wrestling's done with you, because once wrestling's done with you, it's done with you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think nowadays that are in the business are more fortunate because there is social media. So there is different channels to do things. When I left, the AOL was just starting and it was dial up. So there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't StreamYard, there wasn't, TikTok. There weren't all these other ways to get yourself over to publicize yourself to make money.
Hmm.
So, you have my first thing would have a backup plan, but then have a backup plan for when you're done and build your brand because your brand is the thing that's going to get over and it's going to make you money after the fact.
Where can people reach out to you at?
You can reach my website, chazmosh.com. You can go there. There's pictures, there's videos, there's links to the different social media pages I have, the YouTube, the podcast I do on there with my buddy Simon Says. All of it's on there. You can reach out to me for bookings, messages or whatever, contact me all through chazmosh.com.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time out today. Thank you for what you've done for professional wrestling and what you continue to do, sir. It's truly been an honor to take up some of your time today.
Awesome. Nope. Thank you. I appreciate it. And if you need anything else, let me know. This was fun.
Absolutely. If I can ever do anything, let me know. Let me know when your book comes out, and I'll do everything I can to promote it.
100% will do.
Thank you,
Appreciate it.
sir.